on Second Opinion, we'll tell you why research on COVID-19 and shingles vaccine is blocked from public view. We'll explain what happened and what you need to know to stay protected. Plus, from protecting your kidneys to supporting your liver, we're breaking down how hydration impacts your entire body and the warning signs you may be missing. Also, getting on the floor might be one of the best things you can do for your health as you age. We'll show you simple movements to boost strength, balance, and agility. And later, it's a silent health issue impacting millions of men, but it has no symptoms. You don't want to miss what every man needs to know on today's episode of Second Opinion. And first up today, the Food and Drug Administration recently blocked the publication of research that tracked the safety of the COVID-19 and shingles vaccine. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, led by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., it was blocked because the research wasn't supported with data. Well, joining me now to discuss is Dr. Newell-Harris, an internal medicine physician and medical consultant. She also served in the Office of Minority Health under the Biden administration. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Newell-Harris.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hilton. I'm honored to be back.
We need you back because I think in this time, with the change of administration, there has been this growing sense of distrust. And I think people need to hear a trusted voice. So let's get into this. Is this report suggesting that the FDA blocked or delayed publication of research around COVID-19 and shingles vaccine? And if so, what do you feel was the intention of doing that?
Well, honestly, this is probably not the very first time that we've had some questions related to vaccines. I mean, some of this goes way, way back. But this particular blocking of information really, to me, is suspicious of perhaps the information that we really need to hear. Transparency is founded on trust. Mm-hmm. If you are not transparent, then you can't have any trust. Right. And then if there is no trust, then there's misinformation. And then we know if there is really not adequate information, we just start filling in the gaps with anecdotal stories. And then there's confusion. And then there's avoidance. And in this particular case, avoidance of 2 vaccines that we know have truly saved lives.
Truly. And it's incredible to think how many lives we lost, before the COVID-19 vaccine came out. And even once it was out, millions of Americans just now gone. So when we're thinking about this mistrust and this distrust, how do we get back on track for public health transparency and the regaining of the public's trust if we are having issues of publishing data like we see currently?
So it's very important in all communities, and I think in particular as it relates to medical care, that we all have trusted messengers. We have had in the past trusted messengers through the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, but we are without that at this time. And so what I am encouraging us to do is to identify trusted messengers in other places. Now, from the national perspective, some wonderful trusted messengers would be organizations such as the National Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, ACOG, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. These are experts. I said to someone recently, no one would ever want me as a trusted messenger and an expert in medicine to go and repair their car. Right. So we certainly wouldn't want someone who is not an expert in the field rendering opinions about whether something medical should happen, or even more serious than that, we're going to withhold the information from you. We're not going to let you read the information because we have concluded that the analysis is not supported by the data, but you're hiding the data from us.
Right.
So what I am recommending is we need to identify trusted messengers, and we can do that in some of the organizations that I mentioned. But let's really just start at home. Your primary care physician and your pediatrician for your children should be your most trusted messenger. Mm-hmm. Other trusted messengers could be your church. Many churches have health ministries, and this isn't something that's just been a pop-up over the last 6 months to a year. We have been sending health messages through churches for years and years and years. And there are also physicians that are in churches that can serve as subject matter experts. The other place where we also can get some trusted messaging is basically through barbershops and beauty salons. I mean, we sometimes think that there's inappropriate information that might be shared there, but you want to exchange stories and hear stories from people, because people will say, well, this happened to me, but somebody will say, well, that didn't happen to me. So we really need to just take those individuals in our communities and use them as our trusted messengers. And then if you have the opportunity to access the internet and read the studies, the information is not brain surgery. You really can read it and analyze it yourself. And this is part of the reason why it's so concerning that the information is being blocked from publication around these two vaccines that have already been utilized, have saved lives, and have improved the lives of individuals who have had to suffer through these two conditions, because shingles is not a fun disease, nor is COVID.
Right. And it's funny, many people are probably thinking, oh, well, COVID-19 and just death. No, these studies are showing, that the data is showing that it's more than just death. When we're talking about the shingles vaccine, we're literally talking about a reduction in dementia, something that I'm sure all of us want to avoid kind of later in our life. But, a former CDC official stated that HHS leaders now have a clear pattern of blocking high quality studies that includes results that don't support their overall anti-vaccine narrative. Now, when research is delayed or blocked from publication, what safeguards do you think should exist? I know we need to have leaders in place, and our churches do a fantastic job, right? Our community kind of at large does a great job of trying to be a safeguard and a beacon for knowledge in itself. But what safeguards on the national level should exist to ensure that scientific findings are evaluated independently and free from political influence?
Dr. Hilton, I have to go back to the power of the vote. Mm-hmm. I just feel that, the down ballot, the voting in our local communities, because in some areas, as you know, some of these decisions are being moved to the state level. But, in situations where we have people that are appointed, we have no control. And so the only thing that I think that one of the things that I think that we can do is to just go back to the power of the vote. How do we vote people in that are going to make the best decisions for us? And short of that, we have someone here who is not a medical expert, who is making decisions for us, telling us how we can be safe in our communities, how we can be saved from diseases. And in most cases, we're being told to walk away. So I think people have to just use their common sense. Polio vaccine saved a lot of people. The flu vaccine has saved a lot of people. The HPV vaccine has saved a lot of people. We can just go on and on and on if we want to talk about vaccines. Right. But my take on it is that we've got to go back to the power of the vote. And then there've got to be individuals who want to give up their time and their talent to run for office, who have the knowledge and are willing to stand up and speak out about things that are nonsense. And I think what we're hearing today about this is nonsense.
Right. And, we know for sure that no medical intervention, we want to be clear on this, no medical intervention is completely risk-free, including vaccines. We know this, right? But Absolutely. For the public, for the greater good, we see that there are great benefits, not only for cancer preventions and prevention of death and dementia, like I mentioned for the shingles vaccine. How should public health officials communicate risk honestly without fueling fear or misinformation? Because I feel like there's a very fine balance, right? When you start to talk about, for instance, myocarditis, after COVID vaccination, we know that's 5 per million. myocarditis after COVID infection is 150 per million. So it does good to be vaccinated. It reduces your risk. How do we relay that to a community that already has a little bit of distrust with medicine at large and the system that kind of supports it?
I think, Dr. Hilton, we need to look at vaccines like we look at everything else. Every single pill that you put in your mouth has a risk. Mm-hmm. Every single liquid medicine, every tablet, when you walk outside of your house and you breathe the air, there is a risk based on where you live. So living in this world, nothing is without risk and without challenges. What we want to do is to try to minimize the high risk, the things that may cause harm. And so you have to just kind of look at the numbers. And when the numbers are smaller, such as, there may be a 5% risk that someone might die from something. There may be a 3% risk. And there is that possibility. But to uniquely target vaccines in this way, I think is really it's not a fair approach and not an honest approach. Because as I said, you can get into your car and you've got a 50-50 chance of a head-on collision, and that's a risk. Right. So everything has risk. I do think, though, that when our trusted messengers are messaging to the community, it is important to address myths. There are many myths that people just hang on to and use that as a reason or an excuse for not taking a medicine or getting an x-ray or getting a vaccine. So I think the honesty around it is important. Yes, this could happen to you, but the chances are, if there are 100 people in the room, if it's going to happen, maybe it will happen to 2 people, but maybe it will not happen to anyone from a negative perspective. So I do think that we need to be very, very transparent, very honest about what can happen. But the statistics with the vaccines that are being made available to us, the studies have shown us year after year, they are efficacious, which means they work and the risk is low.
Right. Literally, the greatest advancement in medicine has been vaccines. I think that hands down. Thank you, Dr. Newell-Harris, for joining us on such an important topic, because like we said, these things, it literally means the difference between life and death. So thank you for lending us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Have a good evening.
And coming up next, could not drinking enough water put your organs at risk? We're talking about hydration, kidney health, liver function, and how something so simple can make a big difference in your long-term health. Stay with us.
Folks, let me be real with y'all. If you are on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no stranger to systems that don't have our best interests at heart, but we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that as well. No games. Just last year, people who switched with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. It's 20 minutes with a real person, completely free. So give Chapter a call, 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281, and connect with someone you can trust.
Now, we hear all the time, drink more water, but how much do we really need, and what is water actually doing for our bodies? Well, joining me now is Cheryl Grant, Olympia champion and transformational wellness expert. Welcome back to the show, Cheryl.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad to be here, Dr. Hilton.
You're looking fabulous. You're one of those people that when you speak, because of just the aura that you bring into the room, I am going to listen. So let's start real simple. Why is water so essential to our overall health?
Well, I want to thank you again for having me back. And I'm excited to be here today to really share this very important topic with you, because in our system that we have called Connect Dot Systems, we teach people about transformation starts with the very small daily habits. And water is at the top of the chart. Water is one of the most important things that you can do. Our bodies are made up of essentially 60% of water. And when we hydrate and take care of ourselves, we're taking care of all the 11 systems that comprise and make up of our body. That includes your digestion, that includes your cardiovascular, that includes your respiratory, that includes your muscle mass. Every specific part of your body requires water. And one of the simplest things that we tend to do is not drink enough, and then your body is going to pull it from every other place, which is then going to leave you feeling depleted. And a lot of times it will have you reaching for things that you don't even realize that you're reaching for, whether it be sugar or whether it be caffeine or whether it be something else. The body is a very smart tool. And so hydrating is everything. Hydrating is the beginning and the end of everything that you do every day.
And when you say hydration, I know there's some viewer that's listening right now saying, okay, but I don't like the taste of water. So do things like coffee, tea, or flavored water actually count towards my daily intake, or is that actually hurting them?
So I want to say that, first of all, water should always be your baseline with no matter what you do. It's okay to have caffeine. It's okay to have other things, but water is your baseline. And they do add to health and hydrating your body. But when I'm talking about hydrating your body, I'm talking about giving your body the essential medicine that it needs in order to operate. And so everybody, whether it means your hair growing, your skin, the elasticity, you're talking about how supplements run through your body. Water is such an essential part of that. It's regulating every single system in your body. And if you get to the point where you're like, oh my God, like me, for me, every person should drink at least half their body weight. Whatever you weigh, half of your body weight in ounces in water. I try to drink at least a gallon a day just to make sure that I'm flushing out all of the toxins. But sometimes it can be boring drinking water. Sometimes water can be like the least thing that you want to grab. You want to grab something with flavor. I am a strong proponent of infusing your water, whether it be with cucumbers, strawberries, whatever, mint, whatever you like to help fuse it to make it taste better, then I really highly recommend that you do that. But the one thing that you can't afford to do is not have your daily dose of water. And just remember that, especially for us living these busy lives and with our nervous system always under attack, when you're drinking water, what you're doing is nourishing your body at the cellular level. So you want to make sure that every day you're consuming water. Keep it in your car. Keep a bottle extra with you. And the best way that I do it, when I drink one bottle and then I have to go to the restroom, then I drink another 16 ounces. Therefore, I make sure that I always hit my water targets. But I want to say to you, the one thing that you need in your life and in to be the best version of you, whether it be with brain fog or whether it be with muscle recovery after a workout or whether it be with just getting good skin, drinking water is essential to everything that you do.
And you mentioned something. You mentioned going to the restroom, which I think is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't drink water, because they're like, I don't want to get up and have to use the restroom every 2 minutes. So let's talk about the kidneys. How important is water when it comes to keeping our kidneys healthy and functioning properly?
Well, we have to understand, what are the kidneys for? They're filtering waste. So when you drink water, you are helping to not only hydrate your body, but you're also extremely important when you're talking about filtering waste. I want to say that I am 100% committed to making sure that I'm drinking water, not just for my hair, not just for my nails, not just for my skins, but to ensure that I'm flushing out all the toxins in my body, which ultimately go through your kidney. And so as far as using the bathroom, the one thing that I have to say is that's probably the downside of it, but we have to look at what are we weighing the balance of. And so when it comes to being healthy or having to go to the bathroom. I say it's just a matter of how you regulate your day. I try to get, the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is drink water. At least 8 ounces of water is the best thing you can ever do. Secondly, then you want to do is just make sure that you balance it throughout the day so that you don't end up at the last minute trying to consume a lot of water, which will keep you up at night. But just balancing it throughout the day is always a healthy habit to take.
Yeah, I think about if those toxins aren't going in the toilet, they're staying in your body. And
yes,
who wants that?
Exactly.
You know, and many people don't realize that they're actually dehydrated, right? They don't know. What are some of the early warning signs the body gives us that we may not be drinking enough water throughout the day?
Well, one of the things I love about our body is because it's very smart. So whenever you're feeling brain fog or you're feeling fatigue and you're tired or you're having cravings for sugar, that's often an indication that your body is dehydrated. A lot of us are walking around dehydrated and don't really understand that just by drinking water, we can solve some of those problems. And especially with a good night's sleep, water is your best friend. So when you're looking at water, look at it as essential as eating every day. And the thing that you need to do is make it the first priority. And if you're ever starting to feel that you're groggy in the day or your thoughts aren't coming to you as quickly as you'd like them to, and or you're feeling fatigued and you're feeling tired, the first thing I would say is really check, have you been drinking your water? And one of the tips I'd like to give you is keeping a daily log, really keeping yourself accountable, because it's very easy to get through our day and not drink water or not have water even be the thing that our appetite desires, right? You want something else, a refreshing drink. Remember to infuse it, remember to drink it, and remember to keep it with you regularly so that your body can get all of the sources that it needs from water that water provides.
Yeah. And if you're looking at that toilet, if your urine looks more like tea than a clear, light lemonade, you need hydration.
Dr. Hilton, great point.
Right. Screaming.
Yes.
And does hydration change based on age, exercise level? Because I know you're Miss Olympia, right? Does it change based on even certain health conditions? And how can people know how much hydration is adequate for them?
So one of the things, the body is very smart, and I would answer your question, Dr. Hilton, that yes, it does change. At the ripe age of 64, I find that now even more than when I was younger, I need to make sure that I'm hydrating myself. It's very easy to feel fatigued in the day, especially I'm up as early as 3:30 in the morning, and by the time it's time for me to retire, I can tell if my body from bloating water, your body will retain water if you don't drink it. So a lot of women, especially over the age of 40, are probably walking around with about 10 pounds of just water weight. So by drinking the water, you also are releasing water. Your body is very smart about letting the water go. But one of the things you want to make sure is that no matter how old you are, water is a priority, but especially as we begin to get older with the elasticity in our skin, just our energy levels. Again, I spoke to earlier, having brain fog, all of those things attribute to lack of water and a sign of dehydration. So in order to stay hydrated, we just need to make sure that we're getting in again. And I can't say this enough, at least half your body weight in water. And you can tell your body is very smart and will listen. I listen to my body all the time. If I put in a gallon of water and maybe the next day, if I just do at least half my body weight, I know I'm okay. That's always your code of measurement. Half of your body weight in water is what you should be drinking. And then just listen to your body. I teach a lot, being connected to your body and mind body. It's always talking to you and it's telling you when it's tired. So drink some water. If it's telling you that, you feel good and you're starting to feel energized, then you know that you're hydrating yourself enough and you're also making sure that you're putting the electrolytes back in your body from, a hard day's work. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of water. I can't emphasize enough in terms of how old you are, how important water is. It doesn't matter 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or even in the right wonderful ages of 60s and 70s. We still need our water, and our bodies are very smart and it will tell us.
Well, I tell you, like I said, Cheryl, you are the motivator for me. have my water. So,
Thank you. And I have mine. I have a whole gallon container that I drink every day that gives me by the hour so that I can stay on track.
Right. And where can people find you? Again, you have been a guest and we're going to have you back repeatedly, but where can people find you on social media to get more of your tips?
Oh, please do follow me on any of the social media platforms. Cheryl Grant is my handle on whether it be LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and or Snapchat and or TikTok. All of the above. Cheryl Grant, please do follow me.
Cheryl Grant, we'll be there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. What a pleasure. Thank you.
And coming up next, new research shows a short daily floor-based workout could improve balance and agility, especially for older adults. We're breaking down what it means and how to get started. Stay with us.
This episode is sponsored by Kalshi, the largest prediction market in the United States. Here's what makes Kalshi different. You are not playing against a house. Kalshi is peer-to-peer trading. You buy a yes or no contract on whether something will happen, and you're trading directly against other users. Think of it like buying or selling a stock. The line isn't set by some algorithm working against you. It moves based on where the money goes. Public opinion actually sets the price. So you look at the World Cup right now. England is trading at 88%, meaning a $100 trade pays out to $111.50 with a correct prediction. And as that probability shifts, you can buy in or out of your position at any time to lock in a profit or cut a loss. Kalshi is a CFTC approved, federally regulated platform, which is why it's available all across the country, including California and Texas. Download the Kalshi app and use code SOCCER10 to get $10 when you trade $10. You can also sign up at Kalshi, KALSHI.com/R/SOCCER10, the number 10, which auto applies the code at checkout. Kalshi, trade what's next.
As we get older, staying active isn't just about strength. It's about balance, agility, and independence. And new research shows something surprisingly simple could make a big difference. Just 10 minutes a day, 10. We all have that, right? 10 minutes a day of floor-based movement. Well, joining me now is Danny Lynch, yoga instructor and owner of Sittering Excellence Wellness. Thank you for joining us again, Danny.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Hilton. Glad to be back.
Listen, I'm glad to have you because I feel like 10 minutes, I can do this, right? So this research suggests that just 10 minutes of floor-based exercise a day can improve balance and agility from a yoga perspective. Why is working close to the ground so effective?
So from a yoga perspective, there's multiple reasons. So energetically, right, we're talking about the idea that someone is actually being grounded. And so you may have heard of grounding. There are grounding sheets or people that walk outside, barefoot. That's a sense of grounding, helping us feel more connected with the earth. Some people like to hug trees. I like to hug trees. It helps us feel more grounded in that sense from a yogic perspective. But also, working out on the floor-based workouts can really help you just take away the fear of injury, the fear of falling that can come with sometimes when you're working out, and it allows you to sort of settle in and feel more stable. It's going to come with an increase in stability, an increase in balance, and of course you're going to strengthen your core while you're doing it. So there's so many benefits, and not just for young people, but for all ages.
And for people watching at home, what kind of movements or poses are we talking about when we say floor-based exercise? Are these, planks? What else do I know how to do? Crunches? Like, what exactly is a floor-based exercise?
So it could absolutely be planks or crunches, right? But at the same token, it doesn't have to be as intense as that. It can be yoga or Pilates. And I paused when I said that because even yoga and Pilates can get intense. But it could also be sort of grounding movements, maybe some light twists. So what I usually do in the morning when I wake up is I almost always do a stretch, simple stretching my fingers all the way from the toes, like when you were little and you got out of bed, right? And then bringing my knees into my chest, a nice gentle bear hug. Those kind of poses can really help on so many different levels, from a neuromuscular level. They help with the spine, they help with the organs, and they also can help you sort of get ready to start your day or to wind down your day.
Yeah. And as we age, why does mobility become just as important as strength? Like, why does it matter if I'm flexible at that point?
That's an excellent question. So as we age, we lose muscle mass and we lose bone density, and we tend to be more at risk of injury. And it also takes us a lot longer to heal from our injuries. So what could start off as a small injury could start to spiral and increase, right? And I know that you know about that, Dr. Hilton, with the work that you do. It takes the body longer to recover. So the more that we can increase our core strength and increase our agility and our stability, the more likely we are to we are less at risk of injury. We're able to prevent injury a lot more with simple tasks, just as walking, running up a flight of stairs, things like that. Our balance is able to kick in a little bit better.
Yeah. And what are some of the first signs that someone is beginning to lose that mobility or functional fitness? Like, what should we look out for maybe in our 40s, 50s, and 60s before we get to a point of where we can no longer flex in the way we used to?
Yeah, simple, and it happens to all of us, but the simple, when you're getting up and you might start to hear, the cracks. When you're moving, the cracks in the joints, things like that. That could be a decrease in things like hyaluronic acid, and some of these floor stretches and movements can actually help increase hyaluronic acid. So simple movements like that, or the slower to get up. Right? You're trying to get up from your seat and you're finding it painful. Sometimes you'll notice you're like, things like that. You'll start to really notice that, maybe I need to move a little bit more, or just a simple act of reaching down to pick something up. And maybe it was a lot easier to just bend down and grab something, but one day you realize you dropped your keys and it's a lot more of a task. You have to hold on to the wall to bend down and pick them up. Things like that. That's when you start to realize, okay, I need to start paying attention to my body because I want to be able to move a little bit with a little bit more ease.
Yeah. And can you get that back? Like once you're to a state of where you're kicking your keys down the hallway so you can scoot it up the wall to pick it up, is it too far gone, or
No.
can you get that flexibility back?
Yes. So one of my favorite things about when I teach yoga, I love teaching beginners because they often think that they are too far gone, or they'll say, I'm not flexible. I'm like, that's why you come to yoga. You're increasing your flexibility. So certain small movements you'll start to see over time. Your hips will start to open up. Your back will start to feel better. Your shoulders feel a little bit lighter. Your knees start to feel better because the knees are connected to the hips, which is connected to the low back. So if we can get in there, we can start opening some things up. So no, it is not too late. And there are people well into their 90s that are doing the things quite well.
Yeah. And for people who are listening right now, they're like, hey, I have to sit at a desk all day long for work. What is one exercise or movement that they should be doing every day as they're getting older?
Oh, you're going to make me pick just one.
Three. Top three.
Thank you. Okay. So one I will say is the cat-cow movement, right? And you can do that while you're seated at your desk, or you can do that on the floor on all fours, like a tabletop position. And you're lifting your chest and you're breathing while you do it. You're inhale, lifting the chest, lifting the tailbone. On your exhale, you're rounding out the spine. And as you breathe and as you move, you're increasing the flexibility in our spine. When we're younger, we move our spines in so many different amazing ways. But as we get older, we're sitting at our desks, we're driving our cars, and we're not getting that movement in like we used to. Mm-hmm. So anything where you're moving and increasing that flexibility, gentle back bends, those are going to help. Similarly, a nice twist, a seated twist where maybe you're sitting up nice and tall and then you just gently have one hand behind you and you twist over and look over maybe your right shoulder. And then in the next breath, you do the same thing with your left, sitting up nice and tall. Again, getting that movement and flexibility back in the spine is going to feel amazing to your low back as well. I think that the third one I'm going to say, if you can do it at some point during the day, maybe to wind down before bed, it's just a simple stretch, like a star, putting your body in the shape of a star. You're extending your arms out to the side as you lie down, and you're lengthening the legs out wide. And it's a very grounding pose. It's very good for your nervous system. It's opening up in the chakras, opening up in the lungs. So those are probably three of my favorites. I could keep going, but you said three.
As you were describing those, I was like, okay, I can do that. And actually that feels pretty good.
It feels really good once you start. Yeah.
Now, as a final kind of question, what type of exercise gives people the greatest return of investment as they age? Would you tell them to do strength training, cardio, stretching, mobility work? Like if I'm now in my 40s, right? I am on the other side, of life. I don't know if I should say that or I feel that way, but I'm somewhere in the middle of life now, right? Should I be concentrating on strength training, cardio? What should I be doing at this point?
Yeah, absolutely strength training, right? Because again, we're losing our muscle mass and bone density, and strength training is going to help with that. However, strength training can look differently. Yoga and Pilates are also a way of strength training. It's just a bit untraditional. I actually do both. I'm in my 40s and I do both. I lift weights, I do strength training in that traditional way, but I also practice yoga because you're using your body weight in yoga and Pilates to increase your muscle mass and your strength in those ways. Cardio, yes, but there are studies that are coming out. You can find a study that says the opposite of everything, right? But multiple studies that I've read, and even speaking with a couple physicians, they say that intensive cardio can have the opposite effect of women, especially when they're perimenopause or menopause. But I think across the board, stretching, strength training, any type of yoga or Pilates, is because you're connecting the mind with the body as well. Those are definitely going to help.
Well, Vanessa, let me get on it. Next Tuesday, I'm about to start. Thank you for joining us, Danny. Where can people find you on social media if they want to get more tips?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Danny Lynn Yoga at Instagram is going to be the main place. I'm on Threads as well, but most of my information is going to be on Instagram.
All right, Danny Lynn Yoga, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We're talking about a major risk many men are overlooking. We'll explain after the commercial break.
Welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Did you know that men under the age of 50 are up to 70% more likely to have uncontrolled hypertension? That's high blood pressure, compared to women of the same age. Left untreated, high blood pressure can cause erectile dysfunction and a lower libido. So I hope that gets the men's attention. So join me now to talk about this important health topic is Dr. Benson, a neurologist and director of the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Benson.
Thank you for having me again, Dr. Hilton.
Yeah, I think when we talk about erectile dysfunction and libido, that it may spark some interest in this conversation, even though we're talking about just high blood pressure. So what are the main reasons for high blood pressure in men?
Well, let me take a step back and first sort of define what the blood pressure is. So the blood pressure, your blood pressure is due to the pressure within primarily your arterial system when the heart is contracting. That's when it's releasing the blood from the heart, or when it's relaxing. When the heart is contracting, the highest pressure within your vascular system should be no higher than 120 millimeters of mercury. And when it's relaxing, it should be less than 80 millimeters of mercury. So that's what your blood pressure is. There's some people who either for genetic reasons, we call that essential hypertension, or because of their diet's high in salt or sodium, which is the sort of chemical name for salt, you will have elevated blood pressure. It's also associated with people as we age. People tend to put on weight, which is also associated with increased blood pressure and other factors as well. And so when your blood pressure is high like that, it puts you at risk for diseases. About 48% of all Americans actually have a blood pressure that's higher than 120/80. But for African Americans specifically, we tend to have higher rates of high blood pressure. Over 58% of African Americans in the US actually have elevated blood pressures above 120/80. And of that number, over half of those people who have the elevated blood pressure do not have them under control. And African Americans in the US actually have some of the highest rates of uncontrolled high blood pressure in the world. And among African Americans with uncontrolled blood pressure, unfortunately, Black men tend to have the highest rates of uncontrolled blood pressure.
And what is it about our community? Is it our genes that's making us have the higher blood pressure? Is it the community that we live in, where we eat, sleep, play, and pray? Does that factor into why we have higher blood pressure than other races who are within the United States of America?
Unfortunately, that's true. I think those things that are non-modifiable, that we have no control over, I say we have to be proud of them, and definitely we should be proud of our race. There are a lot of studies as to why African Americans have higher rates of uncontrolled blood pressure. Some studies that I haven't heard proven yet, but just sound biologically plausible, is that there was a selection process that took place during the diaspora when people were trafficked from the coasts of Africa over to the Western world in places like the United States and the Caribbean, that the people who survived were those that were able to retain water and not dehydrate. And so if you retain water, you're actually retaining sodium. And so that's a theory, but there is sort of this essential or genetic component. In addition to that, I think some of the causes are related to our diet. We have a diet that's very spicy and flavorful. Unfortunately, sometimes people use too much of the salt. And as I mentioned, salt is sort of like a sponge, and it causes us to maintain fluid within our system, and that tends to raise our blood pressure. And then we do also have high rates of obesity in the African American community as well, which is associated with elevated blood pressure.
You know, in a previous episode, I was talking about how I was diagnosed with severe preeclampsia with my twins, and my blood pressure went to 200s over 100s. But I had zero symptoms, no symptoms. What are typically the symptoms that you have when your blood pressure is going to the point of being that high where you can be threatening a stroke or heart attack or even death?
Thank you, Dr. Hilton. That's actually a great question and a great point that you mentioned. There's recent data that shows that women who have preeclampsia and or even pregnancy-related diabetes, that increases the risk of vascular problems later in life. So it's something to keep in mind for a lot of women that have dealt with that. But the most common symptom associated with uncontrolled high blood pressure is to have no symptoms. most people don't know that their blood pressure is elevated. And that's the unfortunate thing. That's why it's known as the silent killer. Most people don't know that their blood pressure is elevated. Some people, however, will have headaches. They'll have really bad headaches. They'll have blurred vision. Some people have nosebleeds and a lot of other symptoms. But by far, most people don't know that their blood pressure is elevated. That's why it's important to get your blood pressure checked regularly, and that's why it's done with every major medical visit. And now some dentist offices are starting to also check blood pressure as well, which is very important. But most people don't know that their blood pressure is elevated.
And if someone says, "Hey, but I don't have a primary care physician, I don't have insurance, I don't go to the dentist because I don't have the money for a copay," where else can they go to get their blood pressure checked? And especially since we know that it is such an important kind of risk factor for so many other disease processes.
It's a really great question. I think not being able to get their blood pressure checked, it should not be an excuse. People may not know this, but you can actually go into any fire station and go in and ask them to check your blood pressure, and they can do that. They have kiosks within grocery stores now. They're within pharmacies where people can get their blood pressures checked without cost. Also, some of the home blood pressure monitors are very good. People can buy those in their pharmacy. I would suggest doing that if you're able to afford that. They're not very expensive, but I know that's relative. They can go to the pharmacy, purchase a home blood pressure monitor, and those are pretty accurate. That goes on the arm and check their blood pressure that way. I would suggest checking it at least at the minimum every month and every 2 weeks if possible, if they're trying to get it under control.
And Dr. Benson, a lot of men may not realize that high blood pressure can actually affect their sexual health. Like currently, we know 1 in every 4 men under the age of 40 are experiencing erectile dysfunction. Can you explain that connection and why it's something that men shouldn't ignore?
Thank you. That's another great point, Dr. Hilton. That increased blood pressure, I mentioned the blood pressure is due to the pressure inside of your vascular system, primarily your arteries, when the heart is contracting and relaxing. But if that blood pressure is elevated, let's say it's 150 or 160 over 90 constantly, then you have sort of a mean arterial pressure. That's sort of the arithmetic formula of the highest number and the lowest number within that system, but it's elevated. And that leads to damage to the arteries within your body. It can happen a lot in arteries in your lower extremities, your legs, your pelvis region, and in men, it can impact your sexual function by causing hardening of the arteries and decreased blood flow to the male sex organ as well as to the lower extremities, and that can lead to decreased erections or difficulty with erections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if diagnosed with high blood pressure, if there's a man that's listening, woman that's listening, if you're diagnosed with high blood pressure, what are some lifestyle changes that can be made to manage, in addition to any medications that you may have to be prescribed? Are there any over-the-counter supplements that you would recommend? Like, what should they start doing literally today to help keep them as healthy as possible?
I think in general, I think that it's important as a preventive measure. I think it's important to think in terms of life's essential aid, and that's a message from the American Heart and Stroke Association. Life's essential aid includes making sure that your blood pressure is under control, less than 120 over 80. Your blood sugars are under control, your cholesterol. You should stop smoking if you're smoking. You should have a healthy diet with 5 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables a day. You should get plenty of sleep, increase your physical activity, and lose weight. If you do all of those things, then you are sort of preventing yourself from developing high blood pressure. But if you find that your blood pressures, in order to be diagnosed with high blood pressure, you have to have 3 separate blood pressure readings at different time points where your blood pressure is elevated above 120 over 80. And if you are diagnosed with high blood pressure, your medical provider may first suggest doing some of those things that I talked about in terms of losing weight and managing your diet and decreased sodium and all of those. But if it's not controlled at that point, it's important to start medication because of the side effects that can occur if you don't get your blood pressure under control. There are a lot of really good medications to control blood pressure. There are different classifications of medications that can be used. Some of them work better in men and women and other people, but you have to really work with a trusted medical provider to get that under control. Unfortunately, some men, because of side effects from some of the medications and some of the side effects, and I will say that some of them may cause decreased or cause impotence or difficulty with sexual function. And so in those instances, you can fix that just by changing the medication. Oftentimes people will just stop their medication and not tell the medical provider, but it's important to tell your medical provider if you're having side effects. And there are other good medications that are very, not very expensive that people can take in order to get their blood pressure under control. But by far, if you can't control your blood pressure with diet and exercise and decreasing your sodium, then it's very important to take your blood pressure, to take your blood pressure medications as prescribed because of the side effects that hopefully we can talk about.
Yeah. And can you talk about those side effects as far as, for one, if you don't have your blood pressure parameters met versus if you're on these medications, what are some of the key kind of most common side effects that we see with blood pressure medicines that may lend people to say, hey, I'm going to stop this and switch to something different?
Great question. So in terms of if you don't get your blood pressure under control, uncontrolled high blood pressure is the number one modifiable risk factor. It has a high, what we call a high attributable risk in our society with several diseases, cardiovascular disease or heart disease, heart attack, and stroke as well. The reason it has such a high attributable risk is because it's highly prevalent. I mentioned about half or over half of African Americans and just slightly less than half of white Americans actually have uncontrolled high blood pressure. So having that uncontrolled blood pressure puts you at risk for having a heart attack. It also puts you at risk for having a stroke. And so, as well as puts you at risk for having kidney disease as well, which is also very common in African Americans as well. And so the other thing, there was a study called the Sprint Mind study, which is a study that looked at tight control versus moderate control of blood pressure and the risk for having cardiovascular events, as well as the impact on cognitive impairment. And what this study found was that people with uncontrolled blood pressure, that they have higher risks of mild cognitive impairment. And mild cognitive impairment is the first sort of irreversible step on the pathway towards developing dementia. Right now, we have no prevention measure to decrease or prevent dementia from occurring, except for controlling blood pressure. So it's very important because uncontrolled blood pressure can impact your cognition or lead to dementia, to kidney failure, to heart attack or stroke. As well as impact your sexual function. So it's important to get that under control. And when you think of side effects of treatment, sometimes people, if you take medication, your blood pressure can go too low, and that may cause fainting or lightheadedness. We just recently had a great show that you had on dehydration and the impact of that. People who are dehydrated and they don't get enough fluid in their system and they're on blood pressure medication, they can faint or have a syncopal episode from this low blood pressure. Some people as well, because of the medications, if they're taking a water pill or a diuretic, it can cause abnormalities in the electrolytes in their body, and this can cause cramping in the muscles in the arms and the legs, which is also disconcerting for people and can be painful as well if people have that. I mentioned the sexual dysfunction that people can have with the medication as well. So those are some of the most common side effects that people can have with blood pressure medications. But again, if you notice any of those symptoms or anything different in your own body, and people should start to learn what's normal or what their normal feeling is in their body. If they experience anything different after taking these medications, don't just sort of go cold turkey and stop your medications, it's important to call your medical provider and discuss these symptoms with your medical provider and see if there are things that can be done to modify your medication or change your medication.
Right. Because as you stated, Dr. Benson, there are tons of medicines out there. That combination that didn't work for you, there's 2 or 3 others that could. So always keep that in mind before you just throw it out the water. But thank you, Dr. Benson, for being with us. It's always good to see you.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton.
And still to come, my prescription of the week.
This episode is sponsored by Kalshi, the largest prediction market in the United States. Here's what makes Kalshi different. You are not playing against a house. Kalshi is peer-to-peer trading. You buy a yes or no contract on whether something will happen, and you're trading directly against other users. Think of it like buying or selling a stock. The line isn't set by some algorithm working against you. It moves based on where the money goes. Public opinion actually sets the price. So you look at the World Cup right now. England is trading at 88%, meaning a $100 trade pays out to $111.50 with a correct prediction. And as that probability shifts, you can buy in or out of your position at any time to lock in a profit or cut a loss. Kalshi is a CFTC approved, federally regulated platform, which is why it's available all across the country, including California and Texas. Download the Kalshi app and use code SOCCER10 to get $10 when you trade $10. You can also sign up at Kalshi, KALSHI.com/R/SOCCER10, the number 10, which auto applies the code at checkout. Kalshi, trade what's next.
Is all water created equal? Well, we're told to drink more water, and that's great advice. Hydration supports everything from heart and brain function to digestion and skin health, but not all sources of water are the same, especially when it comes to bottled water versus tap and how contaminants might actually affect us. One of the biggest concerns in bottled water is plastic particles. Researchers have found that the average liter of bottled water contains nearly 240,000 tiny plastic particles. These microscopic pieces, known as nanoplastics and microplastics. The particles are far smaller than a grain of salt and can even enter into human tissues. Other studies show bottled water often contains 3 times more nanoparticles than treated tap water, suggesting that the bottle itself and how water is processed and packaged may introduce contaminants. That doesn't mean tap water is perfect either. It can contain contaminants like lead or PFAs, which are forever chemicals, depending on the local system. That being the case, municipal tap water is still regulated far more frequently than bottled water in the U.S. by the Environmental Protection Agency, whereas bottled water manufacturers are regulated under different, often less stringent standards. So what does that have to do with long-term health? Well, we don't have definitive answers yet, but microplastics and nanoplastics are increasingly found in human blood, our lungs, brains, and even our placentas. And early lab research suggests these particles can contribute to inflammation and other cellular stress responses. One practical finding: simply switching from bottled water to filtered tap water has estimated to reduce annual microplastic intake by about 90%, cutting your yearly exposure from roughly 90,000 particles to around 4,000. So here's the key takeaway. Water should hydrate, not introduce unnecessary exposure. So if you choose bottled water, prefer glass or stainless steel and avoid hot storage. Like, do not leave it in your car. So if you're going to do that, you can also use home filtration, as this also significantly reduces both microplastics and common chemical contaminants in tap water. Your hydration habit matters, but being informed about where that water comes from and what it carries makes it healthier. And that, my friends, is my prescription of the week. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week on Second Opinion.